Welcome to the Guidance Functions webinar on clinical trials. In this webinar on clinical trials, we will cover the following areas: permits relating to clinical trials, the scientific ethics committees, and good clinical practice. Permits relating to clinical trials. All projects that store or process personal information or data must be listed on the record of processing activities. A record of processing activities is documentation of information about who processes personal identifiable information, which data is used, and for what purpose. An exception is projects where only anonymized data is used. These projects do not have to be reported to the record of processing activities. The record of processing activities is available in the regions and at the universities. Private companies must keep records of processing activities themselves. Notification procedures, templates, and such varies among regions and universities. Where you have to report your project depends, among other things, on where you are employed. In the region of southern Denmark, notification to the record of processing activities is based locally at the hospitals, but in other regions it is collected regionally. In addition to completing and keeping a record of processing activities, there are also cases where your project needs to be submitted to the science ethics committees. In general, the Science Ethics Committee system consists of 3 different committees: the National Science Ethics Committee, the Regional Science Ethics Committees, and the Science Ethics Medical Committees. The National Science Ethics Committee handles applications related to particularly complex areas, coordinates the work of regional committees, and establishes guidelines and more. The Regional Science Ethics Committees processes applications related to health science research projects from a principal investigator operating within the jurisdiction of the regional committee. The Science Ethics Medical Committees deals with applications concerning clinical trials involving medicine and medical equipment. Currently, there are 3 committees under the Science Ethics Medical Committees. The purpose of the Science Ethics Committee system is to ensure that health science research projects are conducted ethically. The rights, safety, and well-being of research participants take precedence over scientific and societal interests. Health science research projects subject to reporting requirements should, as a general rule, be reported to the Regional Science Ethics Committee unless they fall within the category of particularly complex areas or clinical trials involving medicine or medical equipment. You should report to the Regional Science Ethics Committee located in the same area as the principal investigator's workplace or research site. Projects that are subject to reporting requirements may include, but are not limited to, experiments on live-born individuals, tissues, cells, deceased individuals, and more, clinical trials involving medicine in humans, clinical testing of medical equipment, and health data science projects. Projects that need to be reported to the National Science Ethics Committee rather than the Regional Committee are those falling within particularly complex areas. The particularly complex areas include extensive mapping of an individual's genetic material for which the project is applying for exemption from the consent requirement as per Section 10 of the Committee Act, psychosurgery, research on deceased individuals as part of organ removal, and health data science research projects. Health data science projects differ from other health science research in that they exclusively involve dry data, such as numbers, descriptions from patient records, questionnaires, or laboratory results. They involve research using previously collected genomic or imaging data. If the research project involves a collection of new data or biological material, it should be reported to a Regional Science Ethics Committee. In cases of uncertainty regarding whether a project falls within the particularly complex areas, it is recommended to contact the Regional Science Ethics Committees. The submission of clinical trials involving medicine or the testing of medical equipment should be directed to the Science Ethics Medical Committees. The Science Ethics Medical Committees were established in 2021 under the Ministry of Health in connection with the implementation of the Regulation on Medical Equipment and Clinical Trials with Medicine. Their primary task is to process applications for clinical trials involving medicine, clinical testing of medical equipment, and clinical testing of clinical equipment for in vitro diagnostics in collaboration with the Danish Medicines Agency. When you have to report a clinical trial with medicine, it must be submitted via the Clinical Trial Information System, also called CTIS. CTIS is a joint EU portal and databases for clinical trials, in which all communication between authorities and applicants takes place. It is through this portal that the Scientific Ethics Medical Committees draws the information they need to process the notification of the project. The Danish Medicine Agency is also able to access reports and applications through CTIS, if this is relevant. The European Medicines Agency has created a training program for CTIS, which is recommended to be used before applying. When carrying out clinical trials that involve testing of medical equipment, you must register via an application form that is sent directly to the Scientific Ethics Medical Committees. Testing of medical equipment requires approval from the Scientific Ethics Medical Committees, which must be obtained before testing can start. Depending on the type of trial, the trial may also have to be reported to the Danish Medicines Agency. You can find examples and more information on the Scientific Ethics Medical Committee's website. There is also a checklist on requirements for documents, participant information, and more. Clinical test of medical equipment for in vitro diagnostics must be reported via an application form sent directly to the Scientific Ethics Medical Committees. Depending on the type of trial, the trial may also have to be reported to both the Scientific Ethics Medical Committees and the Danish Medicines Agency. From May 26, 2022, there has been a change in the legislation which entails that equipment for in vitro diagnostics cannot be put into use until it is CE approved, and it must therefore be tested. The test may not start until it has been approved by the Scientific Ethics Medical Committees. If there is any doubt as to whether the product is medical equipment and whether it is medical equipment for in vitro diagnostics, the Danish Medicine Agency can be contacted for an assessment. If in doubt as to whether a project is subject to notification to the Scientific Ethics Medical Committees, they can be contacted and help with clarification. In addition to the obligation to report to the Scientific Ethics Committee, Danish legislation also requires ethical and scientific quality in the conduct of a clinical trial with medicine involving humans. This is called good clinical practice. Good clinical practice, also called GCP, is an international ethics and scientific quality standard for clinical trials which involves humans. The standard includes all parts of the trial, from planning to reporting results. The purpose of GCP is to ensure that the subject's rights, safety and well-being are taken care of, as described in the Declaration of Helsinki. By complying with GCP, it is ensured that the collected data is valid, complete and well documented. Monitoring of clinical trials with medicine and clinical testing is legally required in accordance with GCP, and the responsibility lies with the trial sponsor who is accountable for the trial. This monitoring can be delegated to a monitoring unit, such as a GCP unit. Trials must be monitored before, during and after the conduct of the trial. This will ensure that the trial is registered, conducted and reported in accordance with the protocol, good clinical practice and Danish legislation. The GCP units offer guidance for activities in all phases of the trial, including the trial protocol, notification procedures, participant information, and consent. It is recommended that you contact your local GCP unit early in the project process. You have to contact the unit that covers the regional area in which the sponsor operates, even if it is a multi-center trial across regions. There are 3 GCP units in Denmark: Aalborg Aarhus, which covers the North Denmark region and the Central Denmark region; Odense, which covers the region of Southern Denmark; and Copenhagen, which covers Region Zealand and the capital region of Denmark. All GCP units have their regional websites and contact persons, which can be found on the respective regional websites or on the shared website of the GCP units, gcp-enhed.dk. Here you can also access more in-depth information about GCP and an e-learning module that provides a comprehensive introduction to good clinical practice and its principles. This was the Guidance Functions webinar on clinical trials. Thank you for watching.